Welcome to Allies or Enemies. I'm Jess.
And I am Shawn, and today we are continuing our top 100 favorite games of all time, and this time we are counting them down from 90 to 81.
And you started things off last time, so this time it's over to me to kick us off. So let's get right to it. My number 90 is Gingerbread House, and this is designed by Phil Walker Harding, who is a master at making accessible games. And in Gingerbread House, you are an evil witch who's trying to entice fairy tale creatures to your house. And how you are doing this is by placing tiles to build your house. And every time you place a tile, you cover a symbol, and whatever symbol you cover, you get that type of gingerbread. And then once you have the right kinds and combo of gingerbread for the fairy tale creatures, they come to your house. And I think you eat them because you're evil, but it is a very cozy game. It is one of our go-to games when we feel like playing something light, and it is my number 90.
My number 90 is Unfair, and this comes with a very big caveat of we always use the rule that you don't use the super mean power. So there's different little optional rules, and we use a few of them, but that is the most important one because this game can be so mean. It's still very mean, but what this game is you're building a theme park, and so it's a card tableau game. You're placing out rides and food things and all these things. Then you're sprucing them up with all these extra comfortable seating and different kinds of special luxury upgrades and stuff. And so you're trying to complete goals, you're trying to build your theme park. All sorts of things are getting in the way of that. It's a very frustrating game, but it's a very fun game if you love theme parks, and I love theme parks because it's got all these different theme parks, and they're for a very narrow theme park audience. So there's ninjas and dinosaurs and cowboys and gangsters and all this whole different mix of them. And each game you use 2 or 3 and you mush them together and make this really cool hybrid theme park, and it is my number 90.
My number 89 is Distilled, and Distilled is a game about making spirits. You have inherited a distillery and you are making spirits, and how you're doing that is by collecting a whole bunch of different ingredients, and each round you've got to mix those ingredients. So you shuffle the ingredient cards, and then crucially, you always have to take the bottom and the top card away, and that's because when you're actually making proper spirits, you also have to discard the top and the bottom. I think there's contaminants that make it undrinkable. And so it's just this really interesting puzzle, a little bit of push your luck sometimes too, if you cut your ingredients fine, to see if you can make that really good spirit you want to make.
And I always just ride right on the edge of this. And so I often am making moonshine while Jess is making delicious whiskey.
And this one is fairly recent to us, but we've really enjoyed playing it. I want to check out a distillery, and it is my number 89.
My number 89 is Civilization: A New Dawn. And Civilization: A New Dawn kind of takes what I loved about the more recent-ish the Sid Meier's Civilization board game. I think that there's multiple, but the recent one. And it takes that and it mushes it down into this hour-and-a-half experience, because I love the other game, but it's half a day. And this, you're still doing most of the same stuff. So you're still collecting up techs, you're still building your cities, you're still going to war, you're sending out your envoys, you're doing all that stuff. But you're doing it just a lot quicker. It's you're hitting the ground running and you just never stop running. And it's got this really great card system that they actually stole for Ark Nova as well, where your powers are gradually getting better, and then if you use them at the right time, they're super strong abilities. The one thing I will say though is that this is a lot better with the expansion because it adds the exploration part of it, which I think is missing a bit from the base game, and that just makes it the perfectly full game, still within that hour and a half, and that is my 89.
My number 88 is Obsession, which is essentially like Pride and Prejudice, the board game. You start off as a family with very low reputation, very little money, and just a moderate stately home. And you are trying to build up your home, so you're acquiring like different rooms, and those different rooms let you host different activities that let you invite different guests. So slowly you're increasing your funds, you're increasing your reputation, and you're building up all of your visitors. But what I really like is like the tongue-in-cheek aspect of it. All of the guests have a description about their personality. So you get ones that might be very wealthy but incredibly boorish. So they'll give you money, but they'll lower your reputation. And I like that you're always trying to manage your servants, because you always have to look after your guests. But you need to make sure your servants are available for the right room at the right time. And when you can throw a large party, it can be really rewarding. And that makes it my number 88.
My number 88 is Tang Garden. And Tang Garden is this beautiful tile placement game. And so you're building this really beautiful garden, and you're putting out people to stare at things that they really want to stare at. And also it's super mean, and you don't expect that from this game, because it's like this really zen, beautiful thing, and you're putting these gazebos and all of these people who just look so like calm. But it's also just like super competitive because of how you're taking the tiles, because you're always trying to give your opponent the fewest options of everything that they can take. You're also trying to, once they put out people, make sure that they're not looking at the stuff that they want to look at. And it's just such a surprisingly clever game because of how you're drafting in that very competitive interactive drafting, and also because of like the idea of competitively building a garden, because you don't want other people to finish off chunks, because then they get bonuses. And it's just so pretty. And it is my number 88.
My number 87 is Role Player, and in Role Player you are building the statistics for a D&D character, and how you're doing that is you are drafting dice and placing your dice down onto your player board. But every time you place a dice, it usually gives you like a dice manipulation that lets you like swap dice or increase the numbers, change it around. And the whole goal for that is you are trying to make sure everything lines up perfectly. You need to get all of your like statistics for your skills at just the right levels. You need the color of dice in just the right order. And it's very difficult to do it all.
So many different factors that you're putting together. Yeah, it's quite a puzzle.
Yeah, and so as you are also doing this, what I really like is they've introduced an expansion that lets you fight monsters. Because before that was it. You were just like, oh good, I've solved the puzzle, I have this D&D character. But with the expansion, you're able to fight monsters and eventually fight like a big monster at the end. And I think having that combat introduced makes it my number 87.
My number 87 is Underwater Cities, which is this Vladimir Suchy game where you're building an underwater city, and you've got these like terrific little domes that you're putting on your city, and it looks really cool. And how you play the game is you're putting out these workers, but the workers connect to cards. So every time you put out a worker somewhere on the board, and you play a card that goes with that worker, and hopefully it matches the space. But this makes this really cool dynamic where you want to play a card that matches the worker space, because then you get the bonus on the card, but you also want to put your workers on certain spaces because they're more powerful, or because you just need those right now. And there's also like a ton of competition for those spaces, because there's only like, in a 2-player game, there's like 9 or 10 spaces. And some of those you really need to get to. And so you've got to find like other routes to get to those, and this can just be such a brain breaker. And there can really be times where maybe because you don't get to those spaces, or because your cards don't line up, or whatever, that this game feels impossible. And then there's other times where I feel like a genius. I'm just like, this is so easy. Am I the best in the world at this game? But it's like one or the other every single time I play it. So this moves up and down my list like crazy. But this year, it is number 87.
My number 86 is Colt Express, which is a very chaotic cowboy game. You are on a train that is filled with jewels and briefcases that you're all trying to steal, whilst also avoiding the sheriff. And how it works is it is a turn programming game. So everyone plans out their cards for the round, but none of the actions happen until the end of the round. And so you can very easily forget where you actually are on the train and what you had meant to be doing. And it's particularly fun, I find, when we play it at 2, which isn't the ideal player count because we play 3 characters each. And so very quickly, I end up punching my other character or shooting myself. And I love just the chaotic nature of it. And it makes it my number 86.
My number 86 is Harmonies. And Harmonies is a pretty new game. It's a 2024 game, but it has just charmed me. And so it is this game where you're making an ecosystem, but you're doing it through a very abstract, kind of tile-ish placement game. But the tiles are these beautiful, big, chunky circles that you're putting out and that you're taking out of a bag. And so each turn, you are taking 3 different little chunky circles from this little chunky circle. And then you are also taking these goal cards, and these goal cards want you to make different shapes for your biome so that different animals can live there. And you want to do each of them 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 times, but they often kind of contradict each other. And so you're trying to find ones that are going to kind of match while you make this puzzle, and it looks super simple. And it is, it's super, the rules are very, very simple, but the puzzle gets more and more complex as you go through. And then you have this really satisfying, really pretty little biome that you've got, that you've put your animals in. And it's so cute, and it's so brain burny, and it's such a perfect mix. And that is why it is my 86.
My number 85 is Concordia, which is a very beigey Euro game. And in Concordia, you are traveling a map and you're gathering resources and you are establishing trade routes by putting down houses. But how you're doing your actions is by playing cards. So throughout the game, you are also purchasing new cards based on the actions that you want to do. But interestingly enough, those cards are also what scores you points at the end. So not only do you want the cards for the actions that you want to do, but those will go towards the types of the different avenues from which you want to score points. But you don't score anything during the game and you score everything at the end. And so I always find it a surprise as to who's winning. You can maybe guess what strategies people are using by what cards they've collected, but you have no idea. And so you're always invested the whole game because you think, well, I could be in it with a chance. And so it makes it my number 85.
My number 85 is Euphoria, which is this dice placement game that is set in a dystopian world. And in this game, you're placing dice, they're your workers, and you're getting different stuff. And it's really kind of a resource management game where you're getting different resources, you're using those resources to build different buildings. Those buildings all have really wonderful Orwellian dystopian names. And you're putting out these workers, but if your workers get too smart, so if their numbers get too high, they realize that the world that they live in is terrible, and then they leave and they run away from the world. And I love that when the theme and the mechanics mush together like that. It's so great. And I've always felt like this is one of the most underrated Stonemaier games, and part of that is because this really does need the expansion. But with the expansion, it suddenly becomes a solid 2-player game, although it does have bots. But it also fixes any of the other problems really with the base game, and I think becomes quite a solid game. And that is why it is my 85.
My number 84 is Camel Up, which is a betting game. You've got these camels that are moving around a track and you're trying to bet on who is going to win each leg and who's going to win at the end. But it is impossible to get it right because so much chaos is happening. Whenever a camel lands on a space with another camel, they go on that camel's back and they stack.
As they do in nature.
Yes. And so anytime a camel moves, it also takes the camels that are on top of it. And there are these camels that are going backwards too. So you could have a very clear winner who ends up on one of the crazy camels and ends up going backwards. And so this is just one that you can really play with anybody because there isn't a lot of skill in knowing which camel is going to win. And because of that, it is my number 84.
My number 84 is Nucleum. And Nucleum is quite a heavy game. And so Nucleum, you've got these, how you actually do your actions is you've got these train track pieces, which are also action selection pieces. And so they've got actions on one side, they've got tracks on the other side. You can either play them for their actions, or you can put them out on the board to build your train routes. And your train routes work a little bit like brass. But this is like brass with this whole other crazy layer to it, because every time you use those actions, you make them train routes, you don't have that action anymore. And then you got to use actions to get other actions. You can actually work yourself into pretty much of a corner in this too. But you can also combo those in really cool ways, especially when you put out those train routes, if you put them next to the right things. And there's just, to explain this game would take this entire video because there's so much stuff crammed into there. But it's really, really clever, and you will fall asleep as soon as you're done. Like, it will work your brain to the max, and it is my 84.
My number 83 is Voidfall, and this is a Space 4X game. So you're doing all the kinds of things you would expect. You're building your space fleet, you're exploring different territories, you're fighting some of the bad guys, but this is what makes it different from other 4X games is there aren't any like dice rolls. It is completely deterministic. So before you go into combat, you can just work out who's going to win, and then you're only going to do it if you know you're going to come out ahead. But there is so much going on because there is different like asymmetric factions. There's also these different tracks that you're trying to climb up to, and even just like how you play your cards, you can choose only 2 of the 3 actions to do on your cards. So you just have to like really plan ahead to make sure you've got the right resources to do the right actions in the right order. And there is a lot more to it than that.
There's so much in this game. This is like a Pandora's box but like a good Pandora's box. Like if Pandora really liked 4X space games of stuff that you're doing.
There is a lot, but I do appreciate that it isn't all down to like random dice rolls, and it is my number 83.
My number 83 is Faraway. And Faraway is this game where you are building a card tableau by drafting cards, and you're putting those cards into a line, and you're just going to end up with 8 cards at the end of the game. And you are trying to fulfill what's on the cards at the end so that you can score those cards. But the tricky thing is you fulfill those backwards. So you build out your thing, and then you flip all of them over, and you flip the last one, and you score that based on what you have. And you will forget what you're doing.
It's so counterintuitive because you really have to plan ahead. Still, even though we've played it a ton, there'll be lots of times when I expect to be able to score something only to remember that I've placed it earlier on, and so it doesn't count at all.
Yeah, it's so different from every other game I've ever played. You score this way, but now you score this way, and that little thing totally changes everything. It makes it this really unique puzzle, and we have played this a ton this year. This has become one of our kind of lives in our backpack games, and it is my 83.
My number 82 is Seven Wonders Architects, which is the newest in the Seven Wonders series, and it's currently my favorite one. And it's a streamlined version of Seven Wonders, and I like that it's taken most of the same elements but made it just so simple. On your turn, all you're doing is you are choosing a card from either your left neighbor or your right neighbor, well, your card or your neighbor's card, or one in the center. And then that is it. But what you're doing with those cards is those cards are different resources, and you are able to trade in those resources to build your wonder. And the wonders look great. They're all like compartmentalized into their own little containers, and they look lovely. Or you're able to get your cards to get science tokens, or also be able to win military victories. So it still uses all the similar elements, but in a way that just makes it so every turn like so quick to play.
It's so snappy, and it's such a like beautiful package.
Yeah, I really like all of the wonders in particular, and it is my number 82.
My number 82 is Manhattan Project Energy Empire. And this game has had such a roller coaster with us. The first time we played it, we were blown away. We only played half the game. We were like, holy cow, we love that. We ordered it online like right away. We were just so into it. And then we played it a bunch more times. We were like, why don't we like this? And then we realized, oh, because we're not playing by the correct rules at all. We've done this a couple of times, but never to this extent. And once we played by the right rules again, we loved it. And so this game that it kind of feels like it's set in the Cold War. I'm not sure if it is or not, if it just feels like it. But it's a worker placement game where you've got these awesome little chunky cardboard workers that look a little bit like Lego people that you're putting out on the board, and then you're getting stuff to try and build your energy empire. But you can build that either with clean energy or with, I guess, dirty energy with like coal and all this stuff that has its downsides to it. But the clean energy doesn't get you as much as quickly. And I really like that. Again, just that thematic connection between the dice that you're gaining and their positives and negatives that each one of them have, and that you can win the game either way as well. And there's also combos with the different buildings and just a lot of layers to this game.
And the components look great.
And the components are really, like, surprisingly amazing. And it is my 83.
My number 81 is Civilization: A New Dawn, and we've already talked about this, so I agree with everything you said before. It takes that full Civilization experience and you can play it in like 90 minutes. But one thing that you didn't mention is that you are asymmetric civilizations. And so I just always enjoy asymmetry. And this one in particular, like they all play differently. When you add the expansion, they also add like their special tech card. So really, whenever I play, I try to focus on that technology. And even though we both had it in this chunk, I still feel like we underrate it. Every time we play it, right after we play it, we're like, this is a fantastic game. And then for some reason, like whenever we do this list, we kind of forget about it and it's lower than it should be.
There's a few games like that we think, oh, do we like that? And then every time we play it, oh yeah, we really like that. Yeah, I agree with that for sure.
And we think, oh, we should play it again soon. And then it's months later before we play it again.
We should play this again soon.
We should play this again soon. And it is my number 81.
My number 81 is Tricarian, and this would definitely be higher if somebody would play it with me more, because I love this game. And this is a really unique game, both theme-wise, because you're dueling magicians in this like cool kind of Victorian steampunkish world, but also mechanically, because it's got this cool way of placing your workers where you're programming everything that you're going to do for the turn. But you got to think about, like, when do I want to use these different workers, and when is she going to go to like that really important space that I definitely need to go to, but can I wait to go there like second or third? So there's like a little push your luck in this as well, but you really have to make sure that you plan out your day right, because things can go really bad. And I think that's the thing that some folks,
it can be frustrating because you might take the exact spot that I need to go to for everything else to work.
Yeah, because your chain can kind of fall apart. So it is a little bit punishing, but it's also really rewarding when you get it right. So I guess it depends if you're glass half empty or glass half full for this game. And I obviously am the glass half full person, and it is my 81. And that is it. That brings us all the way down to 81. So next time we will be counting down from 80 to 71.
Thank you so much for watching. Please let us know in the comments if you've played any of the games we talked about. And as usual, please like, subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you next time for another game.